Welcome to Imran Star Video, or as we call it, ISVi, the collaborative lens on Vancouver, unfiltered, unscripted, and powered by community. We're not just a voice behind the mic. We're a collective of creators, thinkers, storytellers, and city lovers coming together to spotlight the people, places, and energy that make Vancouver what it is. From coast, mountain skylines to neon-lit backstreets, we're covering everything from downtown buzz to the untold stories shaping our scene. You'll find us exclusively on YouTube, no algorithms, no filters, just real talk. For behind the scenes updates and chaotic brilliance in real time, follow us on TikTok and Instagram. So hit subscribe, drop a comment, and help us grow. From 100 to 10,000 subscribers and beyond. Because this isn't just our platform, it's yours too. Turn it up, get into it, let's talk Vancouver. This is ISVi. Once upon a time, and by that we mean like 60 years ago, False Creek was less seawall date spot and more Mad Max, but with sawdust and asbestos. Forget the yoga moms, craft breweries, and people jogging in $180 athleisure. This place was all about hard hats, grease-stained overalls, and the gentle background hum of environmental violations. Fast forward to now, and False Creek is the poster child for urban reinvention. A waterfront utopia where you can sip oat milk lattes in a LEED certified condo while a self-driving ferry drifts by in the background. It's giving, I once hosted a World's Fair and now I have a kombucha tap in my lobby. But how the hell did we get here? How did this once gritty hub of industry turn into the kind of place where people argue over the shade of their building's solar panels on the community Slack channel? What happened between don't fall in, it'll melt your shoes, and oh look, another 1.3 million microloft with reclaimed wood countertops? The transformation of False Creek isn't just an urban planning flex, it's Vancouver's ultimate before and after. Think HGTV, but with zoning bylaws, billionaire land deals, and just enough greenwashing to make it look ethical. It's the story of how a working class shoreline became a smart city showcase, or depending on who you ask, a waterfront theme park for tech bros and high-end strollers. In this dive, don't worry, it's metaphorical, the water's still questionable. We're tracing the arc from industry to innovation, unpacking the factories, the fairs, the false promises, and the futuristic developments that now define the area. We'll explore the bold experiments, the big winners, the quiet evictions, and ask the question on everyone's mind, but no one dares to post on our Vancouver: is this progress or just gentrification with extra steps? False Creek may be gleaming green and ready for its drone shot close-up, but behind the solar panels and seawall selfies lies a complicated story, one about power, planning, and who gets to reclaim the future as home. Before False Creek was the setting for drone yoga, dog-friendly breweries, and 2 million condos with raw concrete aesthetic. It was loud, filthy, and smelled like someone lit a lumberyard on fire and then called it progress. This wasn't the curated coastal experience we know today, no ma'am. This was industrial Vancouver, the gritty, grimy origin story your realtor conveniently left off the brochure. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, False Creek was Vancouver's beating, soot-covered heart. It was lined with sawmills, shipyards, ironworks, and factories that gave zero damns about environmental impact or noise complaints. If it could be chopped, melted, nailed, or shipped, it was helping here, probably without safety equipment or any concept of work-life balance. This was where the city's working class put in long hours for low pay and even lower air quality. Picture log booms floating down the water, clanging metal echoing off the inlet, and the occasional fire just to keep things spicy. It was productive, it was powerful, and it was absolutely not somewhere you'd take a date unless you were both into tetanus. And the pollution, oh sweet summer child. False Creek was a toxic soup of chemical runoff, oil slicks, and industrial waste, casually marinating in the water like nature's version of a fast food grease trap. Swimming was not advised unless your idea of a fun weekend involved rashes, gastrointestinal issues, and possibly developing superpowers, but like the bad kind. Neighborhoods like Mount Pleasant and Fairview were full of hard-working families living in modest homes, forever coated in a thin layer of industrial residue. There was not the Instagrammable, artisanal candle-burning communities of today. These were communities that smelled like burnt rubber and hustle. Rent was cheap, but the air was cheaper, and not in a good way. And yet, this era was foundational. False Creek helped build Vancouver, literally. The city's economic engine chugged along these muddy shores, powered by labor, machinery, and an absolute disregard for zoning laws. It wasn't pretty, but it got done. This was long before anyone used the word livability in an earnest sentence or built a public park shaped like a raindrop. Still, by the mid-20th century, things were changing. Industry was pulling out, land was getting more valuable, and suddenly, people started looking at this loud, polluted swamp and saying, what if condos? Every great transformation arc has its rock bottom moments, and for False Creek, that moment arrived with the grace of a dropped shipping container and the charm of a half-sunken barge. After decades of industrial hustle, the once busy waterfront fell into post-industrial burnout era, complete with structural rust, economic depression, and the haunting sound of distant seagulls over shuttered warehouses. By the 1960s and 70s, False Creek's glory days were officially behind it, and not even nostalgia could save the sinking shipyards. Literally. Industrial jobs were vanishing faster than affordable rent in Yaletown, and what was left behind was a mess of abandoned buildings, contaminated soil, and a waterfront that smelled like it had secrets. Spoiler, it did. Think rotting piers, sketchy machinery, and enough toxic sludge to make even a raccoon think twice. False Creek wasn't a charmingly gritty, it was just gross, like urban wasteland that might be haunted gross. The surrounding communities were watching their jobs disappear, their neighborhoods decline, and their lungs cough politely in protest. Developers, they weren't interested yet. It was still too industrial to be sexy and too toxic to be trendy. But the government, the government was taking notes, and what they saw was potential. Not the warm, fuzzy kind. We're talking prime waterfront real estate waiting for a makeover montage. Urban planners started floating ideas. Could it be a park, a transit hub, a futuristic community with people-powered boats and zero emissions? Yes, that one made it into a brochure. What False Creek needed was a big event, a reason to clean up the shoreline, greenwash the past, and slap a modernist coat of paint all over all that industrial trauma. And the city found its answer in Expo 86, a World's Fair that most simultaneously celebrate transportation, distract everyone from the collapsing industrial economy, and laid the groundwork for the greatest rebrand since The Rock became Dwayne Johnson. But before Expo could arrive, with its dancing robots and monorail optimism, False Creek had to be cleared like a bad memory. Out went the factories, in came the bulldozers, and with them, a sense that something huge and maybe irreversible was coming. False Creek wasn't dead, it was in transition, and like every chaotic main character on the verge of a blow-up, it was about to go from toxic X energy to influencer waterfront with commitment issues. If False Creek's industrial decline was its sad breakup montage, Expo 86 was the glow-up reveal. The moment the city burst out of the ashes and wearing neon shoulder pads and saying, I'm fine, actually. Vancouver had been ghosted by manufacturing, emotionally wounded by economic shifts, and left with a waterfront that looked like someone hit grayscale on Google Earth. The solution? A massive international spectacle that screamed, "Look at us, we're global now." Expo 86 wasn't just a World's Fair, it was a full-blown rebrand, a civic thirst trap dressed up in monorails and robots. Themed around transportation and communication, World in Motion, World in Touch, the event was 6 months of techno-optimism, diplomatic cosplay, and international soft power flexing. Over 22 million people showed up, including Princess Diana, Wayne Gretzky, and an entire army of Canadian children hopped up on mini donuts and free pins. In False Creek, she was the main stage. Northeast False Creek was completely overhauled for the event. The Expo Center, now Science World, BC Stadium, Canada Place, new SkyTrain lines, the Canby Bridge upgrade. This wasn't just about hosting visitors, it was about staging a permanent transformation. It was civic Botox. Smooth out the rough edges, inject some steel and glass, and voila, suddenly the toxic sludge lagoon is looking kind of futuristic. The grungy shipyards and factory skeletons were flattened faster than the developers' conscious, and in their place rose pavilions from 54 countries, each more architecturally chaotic than the last. The USSR built a glowing dome, Japan brought calligraphy robots, and Canada just kind of stood there politely, offering waffles and self-esteem. But the real magic wasn't what was built for Expo, it was what happened after. Expo wasn't just an event, it was a Trojan horse with corporate sponsorship. Once the party ended and the international dignitaries flew home, the site was up for grabs. And spoiler, it got grabbed real fast. Enter Hong Kong billionaire Li Kai-shing, who bought the Expo lands for what now feels like monopoly money, and began what would become a decades-long luxury condo palooza that defines the era today. So yeah, Expo was a turning point. It launched SkyTrain, it birthed Science World, it put Vancouver on the map, and made False Creek go from industrial dead zone to a neighborhood with its own branded dog parks. But it also quietly redefined what this space would be used for. Not workers, not families, not heritage, but glass towers, real estate speculation, and optimized lifestyle branding. And thus the next chapter began, the innovation era, brought to you by capitalism, reclaimed wood, and $7 kombucha. After Expo 86 packed up its pavilions, vacuumed up the glitter, and quietly shoved all its dreams into a large-sized memory hole, False Creek didn't go back to sleep. It got a LinkedIn profile and started networking. With its industrial history airbrushed out and its land cleared like a blank Canva template, the neighborhood entered its next phase, the innovation era, a techy, glossy, eco-curated fever dream designed to scream livability while gently whispering, "You can't afford to live here." First came False Creek South, a unicorn in Vancouver's urban planning history, built in the 1970s but reborn in the post-Expo mindset as a sustainable mixed-income, walkable community. You had co-ops, market rentals, co-designed planning processes, green space galore, basically Sim City for social democrats. It was charming, utopian, and designed with people, not profit in mind. A rare success, yes, but also a relic, because what followed was a vibe shift. Enter Olympic Village, the crown jewel of 2010, where Vancouver doubled down on its identity as a climate-conscious lifestyle brand. The village was built for the 2010 Winter Olympics athletes, and after the games, it was morphed into a real estate brochure in 3D, featuring waterfront views, LEED certified towers, a sleek bike lanes, and a genuinely aggressive number of coffee shops that used reclaimed wood for tabletops. It rebranded False Creek from formerly industrial to Pinterest for eco-utopia. The buildings boasted green roofs, rooftop gardens, district energy systems powered by sewage heat, gas relief, and floor-to-ceiling windows perfect for judging the neighbors. It was all very live, work, play, but the live part involved a mortgage the size of a small country's GDP, and the work part means tech startup dream calls and living. And because no transformation is complete without a little digital sparkle, Falls Creek also began attracting tech companies, design studios, and innovation hubs that sound like they manufacture vibes but actually just rent hot desks and brainstorm in beanbags. Suddenly, you had entire buildings full of people who used disruption as a noun and pitched climate solutions over $15 smoothies. This era of False Creek was branded with words like eco density, smart growth, and carbon neutral goals, which all sound amazing until you realize they often mean we care deeply about the planet as long as there's a concierge and an in suite laundry. Its sustainability will make it bougie. And yes, some of it works. Transit is accessible, workability is decent, there are compost bins in most buildings, and at least one public space sculpture that sparks mild existential dread. But behind the eco glass and public art installations is a harder truth. Innovation became a marketing strategy, one that priced out the very communities that once gave this area great culture and real personality. Because while the buzzword soared, the housing costs skyrocketed faster. Artists, low income families, and marginalized communities were replaced by people who use community as a brand pillar but call security when someone sits on their bench for too long. Affordable? Barely. Inclusive? Only if you count diversity in yoga mat colors. And let's not forget False Creek's original identity. Blue collar, industrial, community built, was never invited to the rebrand party. The new False Creek is curated, polished, and dripping with live your best sustainable life energy, as long as you can afford the 1.6 million starting price and don't mind your neighbors filming wellness content on their balconies. So yes, False Creek became a hub of innovation, but not just the good kind. It innovated luxury. It innovated exclusivity. It innovated a whole new way to say green while politely pushing anyone without generational wealth off the literal map. Let's be honest, every urban revitalization project comes with winners, losers, and a suspicious number of people pretending they don't know what the word displacement means. Falls Creek's transformation into a sustainability branded class utopia wasn't just about urban planning, it was about picking favorites. And spoiler alert, the favorites tend to look suspiciously like tech execs with Patagonia vests and an iPhone that always has 100% battery. First up, the winners. It's a short but insufferably small list. Developers, realtors, urban planners who now teach TEDx titled Toxic Sludge to Tranquil Seaway, a masterclass on monetizing hope. And of course, the upper middle class with generational wealth, a Pinterest board called Urban Serenity. These folks got waterfront condos with geothermal heating, granite countertops, and an aesthetic that screams, I care about the earth, it's not enough to downsize. Then there are the tech startups, creative agencies, and co-working hubs that now squat where factories once stood. They've rebranded False Creek as a live, work, play district, where community is a Slack channel, and collaboration means 5 guys in beanies drinking ethically sourced cold brew while inventing a new app that gamifies composting. Meanwhile, the losers, oh, they're plentiful and eerily quiet in the official brochure. Working class families pushed out before the soil had even finished being remediated. Artists who made the area interesting in the first place evicted once the property value of gritty charm peaked. Longtime tenants replaced by short-term rentals and people who called their dog Fur Baby unironically. And let's not forget indigenous communities, because apparently everyone else did. False Creek was built on unceded Coast Salish territories, yet you'd be hard-pressed to find meaningful indigenous presence in the redevelopment process. Sure, there are land acknowledgements read awkwardly at ribbon cuttings and maybe sculpture named Spirit of Something Important, but there's a big difference between symbolic inclusion and actual stewardship. You can't claim innovation while erasing the original caretakers of the land. That's not progress, that's colonization 2.0 with LED lighting. Accessibility, also a myth wrapped in a slogan. You might have a green roof, but good luck finding affordable housing that doesn't involve winning a lottery, sacrificing a goat, or knowing someone on city council. And don't let the public space fool you. If you're unhoused or even just slightly scruffy, prepare to be moved along by security faster than you can say urban exclusion by design. And here's the kicker: the city still sells this transformation as a model for inclusive, sustainable growth, which is wild considering most of the people it was supposedly built for can't afford to be there. And the ones who can are debating whether the community garden should be organic or only or just vibe forward. False Creek became a playground for the privileged, a real estate fairy tale where the villain is anyone who dares suggest that maybe affordable housing shouldn't mean deeply discounted at $1 million. It's innovation, yes, but the kind that innovates ways to smile while excluding people, greenwash inequality, and build a community by Homeowners Association Committee. Falls Creek's glow up isn't finished yet. In fact, urban planners are still out here. Urban planners are still out here treating it like their personal Pinterest board. But the next phase is a bit less sparkle, a bit more uh-oh. Because while the neighborhood's been very busy perfecting its influencer core aesthetic, the future is rolling in, and she brought climate change, indigenous sovereignty, and a big fat reality check with her. Let's start with Northeast Falls Creek Plan, aka Vancouver's next shot at pretending to do meaningful development while half the city scrolls through rental listings in Alberta. This plan aims to replace the Georgia and Dunsmuir viaducts, aka those weird overpasses nobody asked for, with the new, vibrant, inclusive, mixed-use community space. It promises parks, housing, art spaces, and even cultural redress. Sounds great, right? Yeah, until you realize it's been in development limbo longer than your friend's podcast that still hasn't released episode 1. The plan includes a long overdue recognition of Hogan's Alley, Vancouver's once thriving black neighborhood that was demolished in the 1970s to make room for the viaducts. The city now says it's committed to working with the Hogan's Alley Society to bring back black cultural spaces, housing, and community leadership, which is awesome, assuming they actually do it and don't just slap heritage inspired on a new condo with a soul cycle in the lobby. And let's not forget the return of indigenous stewardship. There's growing pressure finally to involve the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations in planning and development, not just with plaques and land acknowledgements, but with actual power and land access. But here's the truth: if we're going to talk about reconciliation and the future, maybe, just maybe, we start by not treating unceded land like it's a monopoly board for luxury towers and gelato stands. And speaking of the future, climate change is coming for the seawall, sweetie. Sea levels are rising, weather is wilding out, and Falls Creek, with its water-hugging pathways and underground parking garages full of Teslas, is looking real vulnerable. Urban designers are now scrambling to future-proof the area with climate-resilient strategies like seawall elevation, rain gardens, permeable pavers, and other solutions that sound like rejected Pokemon types. But here's the kicker: real estate doesn't care about rising tides. Developers are still out here building luxury condos 3 feet from the edge like Poseidon could never. Meanwhile, local residents are asking the real questions like, should I invest in flood insurance or just start building an ark out of yoga mats and Whole Food seats? Also on the horizon, pressure from younger generations, the ones who grew up watching their city become a live-action SimCity DLC they can't afford to participate in. These are the people pushing for genuine affordability, public ownership models, anti-speculation policies, and actual community input. Not just the kind where the city hands you a sticky note and says, tell us your dreams. So what comes next for Falls Creek? That depends on who shows up. If the city keeps letting off dress up as progress or get more of the same. Luxury towers with earth-tone branding and zero inclusion. But if indigenous leaders, renters, artists, climate justice advocates get a seat at the table, we might just get a version of False Creek that lives up to the hype. The choice is on the table, and so is the vegan charcuterie board. And there it is, a full False Creek transformation arc. From industrial grease pit to innovation-themed Instagram set with a brief stopover in Global Expo cosplay. It's the kind of narrative glow-up that urban planners dream about and TikToks romanticize, with lo-fi music and slow-mo bike ride footage. But let's be honest, underneath the solar panels and artisanal dog treat boutiques, this isn't just a story of progress, it's a masterclass in curated erasure. What was once in the loud, sooty, working-class engine of Vancouver has been rebranded into a premium lifestyle product, where the air is fresh and seawall is sacred, and the price per square foot could make your ancestors roll in their unrenovated graves. Innovation, sustainability, and inclusivity are all part of the official marketing language, but scratch the surface and you'll find affordability hanging by a thread. Historic communities ghosted, and the only diversity being in tile options. Yes, we've come a long way from sawmills and shipyards. We've built SkyTrains, walkable neighborhoods, district energy systems, and beautifully designed public spaces. Those things matter, but so do the people who were left behind in the process, the low-income residents priced out of the vision. The indigenous communities still waiting for more than just a land acknowledgement, and the artists who turn decay into culture, only to be replaced by wellness, influencers doing sun solutions on rooftops they could never afford to live under. False Creek has become a mirror of Vancouver itself, forward-thinking but memory-poor, green on the surface but increasingly exclusive underneath, obsessed with world-class status while struggling to stay livable for anyone earning less than six figures or not backed by a trust fund and a family ski chalet. So what's the final verdict? False Creek's transformation is impressive, sure, but is it innovation or just gentrification with a rain garden and a latte machine? A city's greatness shouldn't be measured in how many smart buildings it can squeeze onto the shoreline, but in how well it protects, includes, and elevates the people who built it, lived in it, and still dared to call it home. The good news, the story isn't finished. There's still room to course correct, to rethink innovation so it doesn't just mean another luxury tower called The Verge, to shift power and space to those who've been systematically left out, and maybe, just maybe, to build a future that's not only walkable but equitable. Until then, False Creek remains a cautionary tale in cool packaging, a place where dreams come true for some and drifted out with the tide for everyone else. And hey, if nothing else, at least the view is nice while we all contemplate late-stage capitalism from the edge of the seawall. And just like that, the city's pulse slows, but the story doesn't stop. You've been watching ISVi, Imran Star Video, where voices come together and the city speaks back. We're a crew, not a single face, a movement, not a moment, and every episode that's built with you, for you, by all of us. From the seawall to the skyline, from underground voices to rooftop vibes. We're telling the stories that don't make the news, but make the neighborhood. If this episode hit, pass it on. Subscribe on YouTube, follow us on TikTok and Instagram. Drop a comment and tell us what your Vancouver sounds like. We're building this together, clip by clip, story by story, from 100 to 10,000 subscribers to wherever this takes us. When we get there, we all show up. Until the next drop, stay loud, stay collective, and stay in it. This is ISVi, signing off.